Next meeting is called to order. This is the January 7th meeting of the Board of Selectmen. We're going to go through our agenda. Could I have a motion to approve any payrolls, bills, and warrants?
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So quoted. Do you have a motion to approve the minutes of the December 10th meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So voted. Item 3, does anybody have any announcements this evening?
Nope.
Okay. Manager's report, Mr. Mizzgati, do you have anything?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Now we're going to wait till 7:05.
Sorry.
Okay, you can't make something up? Okay, I'm going to jump down to correspondence, because this is a hearing and it's supposed to start at the appropriate time. Item 6 is a letter dated December 9th from Governor Berger and Lieutenant Governor Polito regarding a firefighter turnout gear grant program award of $2,500 to the fire department. So noted. Item 7 is a letter dated December 9th, 2019, from Governor Berger and Lieutenant Governor Polito regarding a washer extractor grant program. That is in the amount of $5,000. Item 8 is a letter dated December 10th, 2019, from Mr. Mizikar to Thomas Turco, the Secretary of the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, requesting the release of funding for the public safety feasibility study that we're doing in the amount of $50,000, so noted. Item 9 is an update from Nick Kropatka, the Highway Division Manager, regarding the snowstorm on December 11th, so noted. Item 10 is an email dated December 12th from Kampal Medrazi, 45 Patricia Road, Marlboro, asking for a proclamation for Yoga Awareness Month from the town. Noted.
So noted.
Are we going to follow through and
If
send a
you wanted-
proclamation? I think we
that's what I
did
was
one
looking to
last
you.
year.
Well, I don't know, do we want to do it?
I think I remember doing,
We did do it last year.
we did do it last year, so.
And Marlboro did it this year, out of the whole state so far. So, want to do it or not?
Well, just not to make a mountain out of a molehill, but the person doesn't even live in town.
No.
So with all respect, I would argue it's an issue for that person's town to deal with, unless it was some groundbreaking matter.
Well, the governor also did it. For the state. So I don't, doesn't make any difference to me. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'd place it on file.
All right, let's skip
But that's just me.
Let's skip it for now. We can revisit it next meeting if you want. Okay, item 11 is a letter from December 13th from Rajiv Dayal, India Society of Worcester, regarding the expansion of 152 Main Street. He just gave us an update on the work that's being done there. Item 12 is a letter dated December 16th from Rabbi Michael Green, Shabbat of Westboro, 54 South Street, Westboro, regarding an invitation to the lighting of the menorah in the town common. Most of us were able to attend that. Okay. No, one more. Item 13 is a letter dated December 18th from Nick Kropatka, Highway Division Manager, regarding a snowstorm report for 12/17. That storm cost $57,852, so noted. Item 14 is a letter dated December 19th from Andy Truman, Town Engineer, regarding Puritan and Route 20 modifications, public information meeting that's going to be held in the Selectman's Room on January 15th at 7 p.m. They're looking at changing the geometry on that intersection, so if people would like to comment, they're welcome to go to that meeting. Item 15 is an email dated December 23rd, 2019, from James Vona, Fire Chief, a thank you letter from an incident that occurred on September 10th of 2018. There was a resident who was seriously injured, apparently leaving work at the intersection of Cherry Street and Route 20. And she wrote a letter thanking them because their quick action saved her life. So noted. Okay. The next order of business is a public hearing for a complaint, a dangerous complaint for a dangerous dog owned by Richard Karowski, 17 Rice Street, pursuant to MGL Chapter 140, 157. Before we start, I have some procedures. I'm going to announce some procedures that we're going to follow during the hearing. But before I do that, Mr. Meadows, could you go over what we need to be considering?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I did prepare and distribute to the board a memo dated December 31st. For those members of the board that have served for a period of time prior to 2013, you should be aware that the statute regarding dangerous dogs hearings was revised in 2013. So I wanted the board to be aware of what those statutory requirements are. So just a quick overview of my memo, because I think it's important you keep these provisions in mind as you gather evidence as the hearing authority. So first, the statute defines an attack as aggressive physical contact initiated by an animal, and a dangerous dog is defined as a dog that either, one, without justification, attacks a person or domestic animal causing physical injury or death, or two, behaves in a manner that a reasonable person would believe poses an unjustified imminent threat of physical injury or death to a person or to a domestic or owned animal. And a nuisance dog is a lesser standard or a lesser threat, if you will, type dog. A nuisance dog is a dog that by barking excessively or other disturbance is a source of annoyance to a sick person residing in the vicinity, or by barking excessively causes damage or interference that would disrupt a reasonable person's quiet and peaceful enjoyment, or three, has threatened or attacked livestock, a domestic animal, or a person, but such threat or attack was not a grossly disproportionate reaction under all the circumstances. These are a little bit cumbersome definitions, Mr. Chairman, but it's important that, this is a statutory process and the legislature has given us these definitions. So as you hear the evidence, and as I go through the rest of this memo, you'll see why it's important that you have to apply these definitions to whatever finding might be made. The statute does carve out what shall not be a dangerous dog, and that is that a dog, one, the dog that was protecting or defending itself, its offspring, another domestic animal, or a person from attack or assault. Two, the person who was attacked or threatened by the dog was committing a crime on the owner or keeper of the dog or their property. And three, the person attacked or threatened by the dog was teasing, tormenting, battering, assaulting, injuring, or otherwise provoking the dog. Or four, at the time of the attack or threat, the person or animal that was attacked or threatened breached an enclosure or structure where the dog was kept, and the person or animal was not authorized by the owner of the premises to be in the enclosure. So these are standards of what that are excluded from the definition of a dangerous dog. And again, it's important to keep these definitions in mind, because if you make a finding, you may find for a complaint for a dangerous dog, you may find that it's a nuisance dog, and then the board is free to prescribe any remedial action to ameliorate the cause of the nuisance behavior. However, if you find it's a dangerous dog, the statute sets forth a menu, if you will, of 7 conditions or that you may impose to make the situation safer, and those are set forth on page 3 of the memo: that the dog may be humanely restrained, that the dog may be confined by the owner or keeper indoors, or in a secured enclosure, and you can read those for yourself, all the way up to that the dog may be humanely euthanized. Again, these are only available upon a finding of a dangerous dog. The legislature did prohibit now that you may not banish a dangerous dog to another town, which used to be a common practice. So those are generally what the statute that governs this process requires as you begin this hearing under oath from those that would give you evidence, and I can assist the board as we move through this process.
Okay, thank you. Any members of the board have any questions before we go? Okay, this is kind of a rigid process that we follow to try to be fair to everybody who wants to speak, to the complainant, to the person the complaint was made against, and these are the rules that we're going to follow. The first thing I'm going to ask, actually, I'm going to direct that all of the questions that come up during the hearing go through the chair. We're not going to have discussions back and forth between people in the audience. And these things sometimes get emotional, so I'm going to ask you to just remember to be courteous to each other, let people speak. You'll all have a chance to speak if you so desire. So I'm going to read this because I want to make sure I get it right. So the board scheduled this dog hearing to take testimony and consider evidence to determine whether there was a dog owned or controlled by Richard Kurowski residing at 17 Rice Street, which may be found to be a nuisance or a dangerous dog pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 140, Section 157. The dog in question is, I believe it's Binner, tag number 2291, residing at 17 Rice Street. Now, the law requires that the board investigate all complaints of this nature and also requires us to conduct an examination under oath of the complainant. As such, I will ask those who will testify to be sworn in first. This includes those on all sides of the issue. I will ask that if you wish to be heard on this matter, to raise your hand, we'll acknowledge you, and ask you to stand when you speak, just so people can see who's speaking. I will ask that you remain standing as I swear you in, which I'll do as a group. So what we'll do is we'll start, I lost track of myself here.
Number 3.
Did I go all the way through that? Okay. Oh, anyways, everybody's got to be sworn in. Okay, so would all of those who are going to testify or think they're going to testify at this hearing, please stand and raise your right hand. Okay, thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You do? Okay, thank you. If you could please have a seat. Okay, this is the order that we're going to proceed in. I'm going to ask the complainant to testify first. Either the complainant or his attorney, however. That will be Mr. Broder. I will then ask that we hear comments from other witnesses of the complainant, if there are any. We'll then ask Mr. Kurowski or his attorney, or allow Mr. Kurowski or his attorney the opportunity to question those witnesses. Then we will hear from the animal control officer. Then we'll hear from Mr. Kurowski or his attorney, if he wishes to be heard. Once the questioning is concluded, I will then ask Mr. Kurowski if he has any witnesses, and if so, we'll hear their testimony, and Mr. Broder will be able to ask questions of them. At the conclusion of the testimony, I'll ask the board for a motion to close the hearing. At that point, there'll be no more public input, and then the board will go into deliberation to make a finding. This is obviously going to be done in open session. At some point, a motion will be made by a member of the Board of Selectmen as to our findings, and those could be any of the following: that there is no finding that the dog is a nuisance or a dangerous dog, and the complaint's dismissed. The dog is deemed to be a nuisance. The dog is deemed to be dangerous. If the dog is found to be a nuisance, I will then ask the opinion of Animal Control Officer Elms to make a recommendation to the board to mitigate the dog's behavior. If the dog is found to be dangerous, then there are a number of actions that may be taken, but I'm going to reserve the right to discuss those options only if we get to that point. So, Having said all that, Mr. Broder, would you like to come forward?
Can I just
Yes.
put, just for the record, that you do, the board does have a, if I may, copy of the complaint dated November 21st, a copy of the animal control officer's memo dated December 30th, and a copy of a incident narrative report provided by the animal control officer dated December 10th, 2019.
We also have a letter attached to the incident report dated December 30th from the animal control officer also.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Roy, good evening.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Members of the board, thank you. My name's Todd Broder. My wife and I reside at 18 Rice Street with our 3 children, our 12-year-old, 10-year-old, 7-year-old, and our 4-year-old Labradoodle. I was the author of the complaint that you referred to from back in November. And so, the reason that we're here is, it's our opinion that based upon a number of instances, but certainly the latest incident in November, that we have an unsafe situation that we face, and, we feel that Bina, the German Shepherd, owned by the neighbor, is a dangerous dog, poses a danger to us, to our children, to our visitors, to our pet. On the day of the incident in November, just to give you a little bit of background, Geronimo is our Labradoodle, and he is on an electric fence system, so we don't have a chain link fence or the like, but he certainly abides by that system. The neighbors often walk their dog out in front of the house. It's the way on to Dean Park, so they've got to make their way past sort of our front yard. Geronimo's often outside. We're outside a lot. The dog's outside a lot. He's sometimes outside by himself, but abides by the electric fence system, and it's worked great for us the whole time we've been there, which is somewhere around 4 years now. On the day of the incident, most recently, I was out putting the kids in the car to get off to school, and dog followed me outside. The neighbors happened to be walking their dog on the street in front of us, and our dog went to greet them, I guess. He does bark at them occasionally. Went off to visit, I guess, and I turned around briefly, called to the dog, asked him to come. We don't particularly enjoy when he barks at people. He doesn't do it often, but when he does, we try to call to him and have him come back towards the house. On this particular day, the German Shepherd entered our yard unrestrained, and essentially a dogfight ensued, which resulted in a severe laceration to the back of Geronimo, which required surgery at the vets. He seems to be making a full recovery. We hope that he does, but certainly an incident that we feel went above and beyond any kind of normal interaction between animals. It certainly made us realize the danger that he is in and that we might be in. And, we felt it was very important to bring this to the board here for this proceeding. The incident I'm going to refer to now happened some time ago, I believe the summer of last year. And the reason that that we didn't bring this complaint back then was there wasn't a bite, there wasn't physical contact, and for reasons of trying to be good neighbors, we didn't bring a complaint at that time. In retrospect, maybe we should have, but my wife Joellen was out at the mailbox picking up the mail from the day. Neighbors walked down the driveway and kind of approached, and I think they thought everything was safe. But at a certain point, the dog and the neighbor got close enough, and the dog lunged towards Joellen and took a snip at her face. Did not make contact, but it was certainly a jarring and terrifying experience for Joellen. That incident was witnessed, and again, we didn't pursue the complaint at that time, trying to be neighborly, and the German Shepherd was at the time, in training, and I'm not sure if it still is, but, that it was a puppy, trying to get trained, so we gave it a little bit of latitude and slack there. But this latest incident to us just showed that we have a dangerous situation on our hands. We don't feel comfortable with the dog being around our children, our pets. Our children are fearful of going outside, which is a major problem for us, and something that we'd like to be able to rectify. So, we hate the fact that we're here. We don't want to be making this complaint at all, but we don't like what we face in terms of the situation with the dog and our feelings about the dog. And so for that reason, we made the complaint about being a dangerous dog.
Okay.
So-
Does anybody have any questions right now? Members of the board? No. Mr. Berger, do you have any other witnesses that you want to bring forward?
So my wife, Joellen, is here. She didn't necessarily plan to speak.
She doesn't have to. I'm
Right.
just saying if you have anyone else, we would.
I know we have neighbors here. They may want to speak, but, they weren't specifically speaking for me or for us, so.
Okay. All right, thank you. Yes, is there any?
So I do have one
Mr.
neighbor.
Berger, 1 second.
Just one quick question. How much does Geronimo weigh?
42 pounds.
My wife says 42 pounds.
All right, thank you.
He's a fluffy little labradoodle, that's about it. I should have said, our neighbor Curtis Colinero is here, and I think he does want to address the board.
Sure,
I think
okay.
it's appropriate.
You can either come up to the table or you can go to the microphone. Just, the reason we have you do that is because people watching this thing, it is televised, can't hear if you're not near a mic, so.
I'll speak here. My name is Curtis Colinero. I live 2 houses down from the car washes on the street, but our house, our backyard is a border for theirs as well, so we do have exposure to the dog and its activity. My kids are petrified of this animal, and I'm fearful to the point that I've had to review with my kids a number of times how to protect themselves, their face and their head and their neck in the case of an attack, and what to do if their sister is getting attacked. That's the first time I've really had to think about this over and over. And I don't understand, and I know I'm sharing an opinion here, why a dog that seems to be trained in this attack nature, very aggressive, and has shown to be uncontrollable, is evident in our neighborhood or anywhere in Shrewsbury. Just quick thoughts I wanted to share.
Does anybody
Have any questions?
have any questions? No? I have a question.
Yes.
Has the dog been around your children? I mean, has it been out of the property, on your property? Why, I'm curious why they're so afraid of the dog.
So
We don't have any record of any complaint that there was any incident that you reported, and I'm not saying it didn't happen, we just don't have any information, so if you could fill us in a little bit of.
In terms of a complaint, no, I haven't officially filed a complaint. We've tried to be tolerant, but to give you an example, we had a friend visiting from Philadelphia. She brought her small dog, and my girls love animals, love dogs in all other cases. So they were out walking the dog with her, and Bina at the time was being walked. She was on a leash, but was acting in an uncontrolled manner, just trying to run, attack, and lunge at this dog. So in a threatening manner. So when the kids, my girls, see that, that is what is instilling the fear in them. And the fact that when the dog is off the leash, in the case, it's hard to always keep an animal confined in the house. If the door is open, the dog runs out. We have seen the dog outside of the interior fence in that backyard a number of times. And we can hear, his parents calling the dog back to the house. And we have a procedure in our house, when we hear that, everyone goes inside, because the kids aren't to be outside when Bina is out and about in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are any other witnesses that would like to offer testimony on behalf of Mr. Broder? Okay. Yes, I'm sorry. Please identify yourself and...
I'm Joellen Broder, Todd's wife. Geronimo is my dog as well. If I may, I would just like to elaborate a little bit on the events that he referenced, where Bina lunged at my face at the mailbox. So I had gone out to check the mail, and my neighbor and his employees were walking the dog down their driveway, and, within 20 yards of me, the dog began barking very aggressively, lunging, very aggressive. And Rich had the dog leashed, which he does, usually. They continued to move forward, but I heard them approaching, had the mail in my hands, and I turned around, still on my property. I didn't approach the dog. I was holding my mail, but I stood, not in an aggressive manner, and just sort of observing what was going to happen as they drew nearer to me. The dog continued to bark, and then Rich and his employees stopped and sort of waited, and I think everyone sort of waited for Bina to compose herself, and she did eventually sit with a lot of yelling and, pulling on the leash. So they obviously felt it was safe to move forward in my direction, at which point she immediately began barking and lunged at me, her front paws up in the air, and came at my face, literally inches from my face. To the core of me, that dog meant to do me harm. I heard her teeth snap in my face, and I happened, luckily, to step back just in time, so that literally inches. He was pulling back, and I stepped back, and that is the only reason my face is intact. I did not speak to the dog. I was holding mail. I was in no way provoking that animal. And at that moment, after that happened, I was still frozen and terrified, but waiting sort of for my neighbor to acknowledge the events that had just happened, perhaps apologize, perhaps ask if I was okay. None of that happened. They sort of just pretended it didn't happen, at which point I said to him, "Rich, your dog terrifies me. Your dog is scary." He said, "I know. A lot of people are scared of her." And it was almost proud. It was almost a proud moment for him. And that's when I realized this was a problem, and this was going to be a problem. And I've been direct with them in all discussions about the dog, but that, moving forward after that day, my children were no longer allowed in their yard, not a toe on their property, which is unfortunate because they used to play with his son. But I knew that that dog was not safe, and we are terrified of that dog. And then, with the attack on my dog, that just drove everything home. We really fear Bina. She's not, in my opinion, a community dog. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Knapp?
Yes, Ms. Samia.
Mr. Broder, one quick question. In that incident during the summer of 2019 that's presented in the complaint, how far away was the dog? So you said at that point you were standing in your lawn, you'd done the mail, standing in your lawn. How
I
far?
was standing technically on Rice Street, say, this is my mailbox, I had checked my mail, and then I turned around and was here. So they walked down their driveway, which, is opposite my driveway, and then the lunge happened, from the end of their driveway or, a few paces into Rice Street to me at my mailbox. She was leashed, she was restrained, but she was also restrained the day that she entered our yard and attacked our dog. So there have been multiple incidents where either Rich lets go or loses control. But either of those things speak to the aggressiveness of the dog and the fact that it's unsafe to have her around. Sorry, that was a long answer.
No, but just to follow up to what you said, so have there been other instances where a leash has been let go or,
Multiple.
but other instances around kids or?
With aggression, like with demonstrative aggressiveness. The dog has come in my yard with the same circumstances as the day of the attack. A few of them walking the dog on their way to Dean Park. Again, not sure if he loses control or lets go, but the dog has entered my property on other occasions and had a tussle with my dog, but there's never been a wound.
Thank you.
Can I just follow up on that?
Sure.
So you're saying this is not the first time that these two dogs have interacted,
In a negative
but it
manner.
never, was it playful interaction or was it aggressive interaction, and it just didn't rise to the occasion of the incident in November?
So I'm not an animal behaviorist, but it has never been a pleasant interaction. It's not playful. It's not like he plays with the other neighbor's visiting dog, when he plays with other animals when he goes to doggy daycare, things like that. It's never pleasant. They bark at each other. It's always been Bina coming into my yard, and then, they tussle, they bark, it happened this summer prior to this attack. Very similar incident happened, but there was no blood draw, no bite that happened that day, but it was aggressive. It was,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. Mrs. Cassavant?
So in past incidences when Bina has entered your yard because the leash has been dropped or whatever, how have you taken control back of your dog? Have you had to go outside?
So, yeah, I mean, when my dog is out, so typically, unfortunately, these incidents happen in the morning. So in the hustle, between 7 and 8 a.m., they had been on a schedule where that seems to be when they were walking their dog. Unfortunately, that also coincided with the morning hustle before work, before school. We come downstairs, let the dog out to go potty, get the kids breakfast. Like that sort of mayhem is typically when this had ensued. Sorry, what was your question?
I'm just wondering how you managed to separate the dogs
So
in
when
other
we hear
situations.
barking and things like that, like I'll certainly go, or if I see them coming or anything like that, I'll go and call my dog. That, on both of those occasions, we have not tried to break up the interactions. We're scared. I mean, we're scared of Bina. If he's losing control of a 90-pound animal, we have told our kids we don't go insert ourselves into that scenario. Typically, he gets her back or she comes back to him, and that's how it ends. My dog is typically pinned, like not, he doesn't end the interaction. Their dog, is called off or retreats. He's not pulled her off, nor have we broken it up. The humans sort of stay out of it, typically.
I have one more question.
Sure.
What about unleashed? I thought I heard someone mention something about when they hear the dog being called. Does that mean that that Bina has left her yard, or is that something that's happening?
So since the incident and since Keith's recommendations, I have not seen their dog at all. So I think they are keeping it confined in their fenced backyard, which I appreciate so very much. But prior to that, there are times that the dog would do like off-leash training in the driveway or just roam in their property, some of which is fenced, some of which is not. So yes, their dog used to roam at times, particularly like with the grandmother come out who would check the mail and bring the dog with her, things like that. The dog has entered our yard before as well when our dog hasn't been out. That is a rare occasion, and that has not happened in a long time.
Thank you.
I just, one other question. Were you home when the incident happened in November?
When the attack on my dog happened in November, I was not home. My husband was home.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Karowski, your attorney, Mr. Cullen,
Jeremy Cohen, Mr. Karwoski.
would you like to,
Sure, thank you.
I need you to go to a microphone, either there or here, just for,
Thank you. So if I understand the protocol you outlined, this would be a chance to ask questions of the complainant or the witnesses through you.
yes.
So one question I have is, has Geronimo ever left the property unleashed? So has the Broder's dog Geronimo ever left the property unleashed?
Mr. Berger?
Yes, he has.
And has the dog ever gone to Mr. Karwoski's property while unleashed?
Mr. Berger?
I'm not sure. It's possible. There was one point at which we had a break in the electric fence, and the dog roamed a bit, and we got it back, no problem.
Okay, and on the most recent, the only incident that's been reported, can Mr. Berger describe, he was outside, in one of his statements, I just want to confirm, he said that Geronimo was sitting down in pain, unable to move to him. And after the incident, I just want to confirm that he wrote that, but if you can elaborate on that.
Mr. Berger?
Yes, that is true. There was the scuffle. Geronimo whimpered in a dog shriek whimper. Sat down, and I was calling to him, and he did not come to me.
Mr. Berger refers to it as dog having surgery. We've seen no evidence of a vet bill. So my question is, how much was the vet bill?
Okay. Mr. Berger, do you have that information?
I do, Mr. Chairman. Geronimo was seen at Community Animal Hospital, and I could read you the description of what they did on that day, but he was put under general anesthesia, and he was attended to.
Mr. Chairman, my question is, how much was the vet bill?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, the vet bill from Community Animal Hospital was $331.96. They were very good to us.
Thank you.
And
Let me just interrupt
sure.
for 1 second. Do you have a copy of the what the vet did?
yes.
Okay, you do
Thank
have it.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure you do.
Thank you.
Okay. Make sure you're aware of it. Okay.
Thank you. Did Geronimo have to stay overnight in the hospital?
Mr. Berger?
I guess I'll just stay here.
I just going to suggest that.
No, he did not.
Okay.
And has Geronimo been in their front yard without the e-collar on at any time?
Mr. Berger?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. He is trained. He doesn't even need the collar. It doesn't impact his behavior in one way, shape, or form. He abides by the boundaries of the collar because he's very well trained. It's a learned behavior.
Okay. Mr. Cohen, any other questions?
Provided the training for Geronimo with the e-collar.
It's a company called Dog Watch.
And, Mr. Chairman, why haven't the Brodeurs, with their stated concerns and fear, put up a fence, a real fence, not an invisible electric fence?
You can answer or not answer that question.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, respectfully, that's not the issue here. The issue's not our dog. The issue is their dog. Their dog entered our property. Our dog has aimlessly roamed around the neighborhood on a few occasions, and he is of not of anyone's concern. He's not a nuisance, he's not a dangerous dog. He's a Labradoodle.
And
Mr. Cohen?
in this incident, the only incident that's been reported, did Geronimo bite Bina?
I couldn't be sure of that. It was a scuffle, and I couldn't be sure. I have no records that indicate that he did. I don't think any evidence has been introduced that happened.
And has Mr. Brodeur had an opportunity to see video of the incident?
Did you see that video?
I didn't know there was video.
No more questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Meadows, should we play the video, seeing it was mentioned?
Who has the video?
We have
I have it right here.
do we have it on there?
Yep.
Can you,
I was just gonna take a
Yeah,
minute.
do you want to, wait,
wait?
yeah,
Okay.
I don't know, what's the preference of the board? I mean, rather than,
I think.
You want to wait?
I think you should testify.
You wait till
Yeah.
after?
yeah, I
animal
think we should
control
let the other
officer?
party
Okay, sorry.
complete, and then
Okay,
just some,
okay. Anything else, Mr. Cohen?
Just a question, is the other party the animal control officer?
no,
or us?
yourself.
But is next up animal control?
Yes.
Okay. I'll step back then.
Okay. Mr. Cohen, if nobody else is, are you going to have witnesses?
Yes, but I'm just following the
Wait,
protocol.
yes, I know. Mr. Meadows. In terms of procedure, should we let him continue and bring his witnesses, or bring the animal control officer first?
I think I'd rather have the dog owners council proceed unless he objects to
Sure,
that. but I
okay,
just think
that was
that's-
the way
Yeah.
we had it written, so if you'd like to move ahead now,
Great.
probably makes more sense.
Maybe the dog officer can do the video? The dog officer can introduce the video?
Okay.
He's the one that got it for us, right?
Okay. Good evening, you are
Richard,
Richard Karowski.
Gross.
Okay,
nice to meet you guys. Unfortunate circumstances.
okay.
So brief opening statement about our position, and it's that what happened and what you'll see in the video, this was these dogs have often yelled at each other, barked at each other. Geronimo, I have it. Okay. Geronimo has been off the property just as much as Bina has. In the video, you'll see Bina walks past Geronimo and is not paying attention, is under control. It's Geronimo who charges out. This hearing should actually be about the Brodeurs and whether they have a dangerous dog, because unlike my client, the Brodeurs are unwilling to recognize that an electric fence is an ineffective way to protect your dog. Any animals can get in the electric fence. Another dog obviously can get inside, doesn't see that this is not an enclosure, this is an invisible fence. And when a dog like Geronimo gets out of an electric fence, it can't get back in, because it runs out for the trigger and it can withstand the pain, but it can't get back in by walking. So it's preferred among pet owners that they don't use an electric fence as the only safeguard. Here, Geronimo is the antagonist. Under the definitions that town council read, our dog, she was being provoked, she was being charged at, and you'll see that her response was not disproportionate to the threat that was coming at her and her owner and the two people that were walking with them. If Bina was an aggressive dog, we've heard how, you've asked questions about how did these interactions end? Well, I can tell you, they never ended in a bite until this one. And if Geronimo was this dangerous dog, an aggressive, dangerous dog, these incidents would have ended with hospitalizations, with death, with bites to the face, with a dog, $300 bill. That means, thank you for coming into the office, we just charged you $150 just for walking in. This was not surgery, this is to clean the wound, give the dog some anesthesia, clean the wound, and put some drains and stitches. This wasn't surgery to repair anything. Bina did exactly what dogs do, and you'll see Geronimo does the same thing. In bites at the back of the neck, the scruff here, and you'll hear from our trainer, Saul Oven, tonight. Dogs purposely have extra skin here, and the skin purposely is much looser than on a human. And that's because when dogs talk to each other, when they get in their arguments, that's where they go for it. Because that's not an important area. There's no vital organs there. If Bina was trained to kill and trained to fight, she would have gone for some, and you'll hear testimony that what she could have done is gone for some kill bites. She could have made it so this Labradoodle would never walk or even breathe again. None of that happened, and it was because you'll see that Geronimo, Bina sends the message and then leaves. She comes off. The whole thing took 7 seconds. So before we get into anything further, it was my client who, using at the house they have the security camera. It's a 37-second video, if we could play it. The one that the town has is, I believe, if it's the one that was sent to me, is a video of the video. This is the actual video. Yeah. Is there anybody who?
I could just have to turn it on.
One is the town's one. And while we wait for that, I just want to add that in terms of what my client has or is willing to do, he doesn't like this. This is not good for the neighborhood. While they live far apart, they're still essentially next door neighbors. He's willing to, if it provides some comfort, he'll muzzle his dog when he's walking by there. If he's going to Dean Park and he's leaving his house and walking there, then he said he'll just muzzle his dog the whole way, and he would agree to make that sort of a permanent part of what he does. He's taking responsibility. He's still, whoever started it, the dogs shouldn't be biting each other, and since they don't seem to get along, he's willing to put a muzzle on. Okay. So this is coming from Richard's house. That's Bina. Richard's walking her. To the left is the Brodor's house. Now you'll see Geronimo come charging out. And that's it. And the important thing is, we also see, because these cases are emotional and people tend to embellish, we see Geronimo standing upright and walking away. So that's it. That's why we're here. That 7-second incident.
Can you play it one more time?
Oh, yeah.
Would you mind? Is that okay?
Yeah, if you want.
What do you do?
Just play it one more time.
Could someone identify the property line too, just so?
So this is, Richard, so this is your driveway coming from your house.
Correct. It's about 500 feet.
And This is Berger's property. Their house sits over there, facing this
The
way.
left of the driveway is all of their property.
Yeah,
And then there's a house over here.
That is School Street.
That's School
Rice
Street.
Excuse me, there in the center where they're
Is this
walking.
your house
And
over
that's
here?
our driveway, yes, to the left, and our home sits,
Does the fence sort of come this way, like a few
Yes.
feet from the curb?
yes.
And is this 17 is Richard? 17's you, that's
Yes.
your mailbox?
yes.
And this is the route you'd take to get to?
Dean's Park, and walk dog every morning there, yes.
Yep, seeing you mentioned the mailbox. Mr. Berger, is your mailbox on that same post, or are you on,
So
you
our
further up?
mailbox, mine, is identical to that, and it's, you know, about.
Oh, it's on your side of the
right
street?
Here,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Before we see this again, and I'm not so sure, I'll ask a question and someone who knows can answer it, I suppose, Mr. Chairman. Would it be fair to see Geronimo, or the little fluffy dog, run toward the road? Does he then seemingly stop and run along his electric fence?
Yes.
Is that how one would see and understand that? Okay, thank you.
That's how I see it too. But obviously, Bina doesn't know that Geronimo
Nope,
can't come through.
wouldn't expect the dog to
It
know
looks like
that.
the dog runs the straight line of the fence.
May I ask a follow-up, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
When the shepherd breaks loose, can someone tell me what happened that it broke loose?
Do you want me to explain how you're supposed to hold the leash, or do you want to deal with that?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Do I have a leash with me? Do you want me to show him?
Sure.
My trainer can verify this.
The question, Rich, the question is just this. If you're holding the dog, how's the leash come through? But you can grab the leash and show it.
Okay. So you hold the leash like this, and like this. And that's how you hold the leash. So it's not around your wrist. What happened is, she pulled out. I had my hand up, calling for Todd to call his dog, which never happened. And what happened was, it came off my thumb. And that's where you see me lunging down to try to catch it in the air.
You see, and
And that's how you're trained.
just one thing to watch is, as we go through, it's around second 20. You'll see Rich, he puts his left hand here, he's got the leash here, and he's trying to go right. He's trying to avoid this. There was a question in one of the things submitted as to whether something was done on purpose. You could see him moving to the right to avoid the confrontation.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
Though someone has instructed you that that's the right way to hold it, it doesn't appear to ensure the security of the dog. Given that, what we just saw, and the fact that it is
If I had both
secured.
hands on there,
Yeah.
it would've. And what happened was, I raised my hand and I was calling to Todd, because this isn't the first time, that, she's right, because the dog always comes charging out, is I asked him to call Bina, or Geronimo, sorry. And he wasn't, and then and that's when I put my hand back to try to regroup everything. And that's when positioning my hands, she pulled it the right, it was just unfortunate circumstance. She pulled it the right way, came off my thumb, and as I felt it come right off, that's where you see me diving down and trying to grab it.
Okay, thank you.
Just a
Mr. Samia?
follow-up question related to that. So has the dog ever broken free from you before, with you holding the leash like that?
No, not in this
So
situation.
the dog has never broken free from you before while you were holding the leash? Or never any similar type circumstance where, let me take a step back. Has your dog ever been roaming beyond the fence freely?
No. No, Bina, you gotta understand something. It's like, Bina she stays in eyesight. Her job is her family. She's all about her pack. She stays in eyesight. I can open up every door in my house, and I have videos of it, and she won't go out the door unless I'm there with her. I got videos in my house, in my backyard, where she goes to the bathroom, and she stays right where we are at. And I can show you in the backyard, all snow, there's no footprints, because she doesn't take off roaming.
Good. if, getting back to the question about how, so the leash comes through, that's why a muzzle would be so helpful as backup. Because unless the muzzle's put on wrong, then that's not gonna come off.
Go ahead, John.
Did you,
Let me go back to that. So you're saying the dog's never been outside your yard?
When she was 4 months old, we had a black lab, so I've had both, okay? And my black lab would follow my 77-year-old mother-in-law to the mailbox. And at one incident, she would follow the puppy would follow the black lab. And the black lab was, happy-lucky everywhere, right? She walked over into the road over there, and Bina followed her, okay, in that situation. And that's exactly the only time she's ever left that property on her own.
That's it for
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman? Sure. We've heard the Broders and a neighbor describe a level of discomfort and outright fear of the dog. How does one explain their concern without this incident and without the mailbox incident? How do you explain that level of concern and yet balance it with what you've described as the dog?
So, may I talk? So I think from what Joellen's saying, and I feel terrible, that she feels this way. So Joellen, I had that situation, and she reached down to touch Bina, and that's when Bina lunged, and I pulled Bina back. But they've gone and they've talked to all the neighbors, because they all tell me she's out there talking to everybody and anybody. So I really believe she's created this anxiety, and she's really close friends with that neighbor that just talked. You don't see, I have neighbors.
I don't think that's relevant, though.
Okay, all right, that's fine, all right. I have two neighbors.
Understand how
Okay,
one
wait, so hold on.
balances that.
I'll explain. I have two neighbors that are directly on top of me.
So, let me,
Yeah.
it's, if I can jump on, it's,
With all due respect, I don't mean to be a wise guy.
You don't want to
You're
hear from me.
paid counsel, you're paid counsel, I understand that. The gentleman lives in Shrewsbury. The gentleman's neighbors are, for whatever reason, concerned with his dog. He relates a very different story to this board, so I'm simply asking, how do the five of us wrestle with what two neighbors are saying versus his description of the experience in owning this dog? That's it. I'm just asking what I think is a very simple question.
good. He's just
All right,
asking how
okay,
can they feel safe?
All right, so I have neighbors, the two neighbors here are the ones that are the furthest away from me. I have no fence in the front yard. I have my whole complete backyard fenced. My front yard has people that are directly on top of me and back of me where there's no fence. No issues. Matter of fact, one of them asked if I wanted them here, and I said there was no need, okay? They've also offered for me to bring my dog through their front yard because they understand the issue that's going on, okay? So I do understand the anxiety, and I feel terrible for the anxiety, and I don't want that anxiety. I have Bina, and I'll tell you something, as I stand here, I would have another German Shepherd, because the loyalty, the bond you have, and I had a black lab, is unbelievable. Do you have to have it under control? Yes. Do you have to do all the right things? Train, have a fence. Am I doing all those things? Yes. Okay, is there a paranoia, a little bit in general, with big dogs and German Shepherds with people, and Doberman Pin and all these other things? Yes, because they have track records, okay? I understand that. But I'm doing all the right, responsible things. And unfortunately, Bina's the big dog in the situation. Bina's a German Shepherd, and yes, there is gonna be people that are intimidated by that, and I can't control that.
May I ask a follow-up, Mr. Chairman? If a neighbor has a very large dog and a neighbor has a small dog, and the small or the large dog walks by in a very orderly fashion day in and day out, there may not be the reason for that level of angst. But if a dog displays the first, let alone the second, level of activity, wouldn't it be fair to expect the neighbors to have a degree of concern?
Okay, now, I walk by one house that has two dogs, another one has three.
Yep.
No issues. I take the dog every morning to Dean's Park. His predecessor, the animal control, used to feed my dog. She was a wonderful woman. I don't know what happened to her when I saw him. she used to feed my dog hot dogs. Okay? I mean, this is, I really feel that, yes, there's a concern on the part, and I respect it, and I understand that, but is it equal proportion?
Let me ask a question. The other animal control officer retired, by the way. But why were you having interaction with the animal control officer?
She would park her car, or SUV. She would park it there, and she was checking people's dog.
At the park?
Yeah, she would go there and make sure they had their licenses. That's how it happened. Because Bina was just 4 or 5 months old, right before you need to have the license, and that's how the interaction started.
So,
And then we started.
before we watch the video again, I just want to respond to this, because your question indicates, your question leads me to believe that without any proof, without any incident reported, with a $300 bill, that this dog rises to some highly aggressive level. But while people can hype, the video shows you, if this dog had the aggression this is claimed so far from the other side, without any proof, you know, Geronimo, this would be a dead dangerous dog hearing. This wouldn't be a dog hearing. Dogs like Bina, if they're going to be the aggressive dogs, they don't retreat. They don't tussle and retreat. And we all know that. They don't make one puncture wound and retreat. That's sending a message and retreating. And part of that message is, I am so sick of you, Geronimo. Every time we walk by, I'm on a leash. I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm the one who's getting trained constantly, and you're barking at me and charging at me. Gets annoying. And if there was that much concern that Bina could do this every day, then clearly there wasn't that much concern, because the dog's still playing freely in his front yard. I mean, if there was that much concern, the dog wouldn't be out there without any supervision.
Mr. Simon?
Just following your logic, though, on
Yeah.
that. So help me understand, what's the issue with having Geronimo in the front yard, where the video shows that the dog was walking along what appears to be where the electric fence was? So explain to me with your logic that how Geronimo's in the wrong there, because Geronimo's in the yard. What
Sure.
law are you thinking of that there's a problem there? I'm struggling with that.
Thanks for the opportunity. So what you see is, you see Geronimo come charging. Now, Geronimo wasn't walking the fence. That's not walking the fence. That's a barking dog that comes charging. And
There's
as,
a barrier, correct? So they never left the fence area, though, right?
right, but
Okay,
Bina
so-
doesn't know there's a barrier. He would have,
But, so, okay, so, I mean, that's what I'm struggling with. Basically, you're saying, because the dog kept barking and barked every day, my dog was angry and attacked in his yard. So I'm trying to understand how a dog barking somehow necessitates, or then it's okay for the dog to come in the yard. I'm trying to
oh
understand
no,
that.
it's not okay to come in the yard, but the
Okay.
point is, it's not okay to come in the yard. Bina's more to blame here. I mean, if we haven't accepted that already, I mean, we're trying to mitigate the blame, but Bina's the one that got loose and went after him.
If you were
But,
walking
one
down the
second,
street.
just a second, please. I just want to, because he's right about this. What I'm saying is, if it's all relative, Bina didn't leap a fence, so she can go through a wooden structure. She didn't tear through a chain link fence to get at Geronimo. And even when she got on, what she doesn't know is Geronimo's property, she doesn't stay for very long. I mean, she stays for 7 seconds. This wasn't pin down, thrash, shake. So, of course, Bina is the more aggressive, and she's the one who used her, well, she used her mouth first, although Bina got bit in the leg. But the point is, I'm trying to just help everybody understand, like, this is a pretty minor bite from a dog that sounds like everybody thinks this is a monster. I mean, this is a minor bite.
Okay, I was just trying to understand what you were saying.
We can bring that.
Mr.
Can you
Kurowski,
share the video?
video again?
Mr. Kurowski, just so you know, those mics will pick up even low talking, so if you want to have a confidential conversation, cover your mouth or cover the mics.
Thank you very
He
much.
just wants to use an analogy. since he's gonna try to get me to say it later, you can use the analogy.
Is if you see somebody, you're walking down the street with your wife, and somebody's coming at you, charging at you with a baseball bat, okay? Same thing as a dog coming charging at you and barking. Are you gonna say, whoa, there's a barrier, he's gonna stop? Or are you gonna protect yourself? The dogs do the same thing.
Yeah, but
I've read, how many books I've read on the German Shepherds? I didn't buy this dog without going into this reading.
But isn't that gonna happen over the lifetime of the dog? You
It's
could
gonna
bring the-
happen with any dog.
Right, but then you could bring the dog to Petco, and you're gonna have a little kid coming up to the dog won't know.
My dog goes to Petco, Home Depot, and Lowe's all the time. Have you seen any report?
No, but we're looking at the video here, trying to understand what you're
All
saying, and
right, he'll explain more on how this all comes about.
I think the video will, I think you gotta watch it 2 or 3 times, just to see the parties and everything.
Sure.
All right. Go for it.
Just one other quick question while we're waiting for the video. You said you walked by a couple other houses with other dogs?
Oh, yes.
Are any of those dogs in the front yard
Yes,
with an electric fence?
they have, I don't know, I don't ask them that, so I have no idea.
Do they bark at
Yeah, oh,
your
yeah.
dog as well?
Yeah. I took him on a walk and. I walk in the park. That's what happened. It shows me.
So, is there anything else that's important?
Well, I got the blow-up picture showing Geronimo actually, where the incident happened, where Geronimo bit Bina in the back of the leg.
Did you
I
have to
blew
go
it
to
up.
the vet for it, though?
I didn't take her to the vet because it wasn't, it didn't, there was no blood, but that's where the whole incident happened.
With an altercation like that, I have a dog, I've had dogs, I've had several dogs at the same time, sometimes they fight. So it's not, you're not suggesting that it's unusual that one dog, even if it got bitten, might bite the other dog? I mean, both dogs could still bite each other, right?
Okay, absolutely. I think.
Okay, so-
Yeah, just that this wasn't a pummeling. This wasn't what Mr. Brodeur wrote in his statement. This was not this.
That, I was in front of it. I was there. I was directly in line. I called Bina, she started coming. As you can see, as she was coming to me, he was chasing her. There was no bite at that time. When she was coming to me, he was chasing her, following her, as you see. He bit the back of her leg. I've got the blown up picture of it. That's when she turned around and reacted to him. I don't know if she was trying to, no matter what, it's wrong. I don't know if she was trying to protect me or back him off or what. But that's where the incident actually happened. Before that, and you look at this video, she's got her head down. Look, to me, it looks like they're playing in this essence. They're not even touching each other until it gets close to me.
Can you run that again?
Yep.
If you're doing slow, you can really see every action.
Again.
Okay. Everybody seen enough of the
I have a
video?
question.
Have any other questions about the video?
I have a question.
Yes.
Did you continue your walk after this, or did you come back inside with your dog?
I went up to the street, composed Bina, let Todd go inside, and then I stood at the corner. This is a motion one, so there's no motion, it cuts out. So I waited up at that corner, I waited for Todd to come out of the car, and when he came up next to me, I stopped him, asked if everything was okay. this was unfortunate, to talk to him about it, and the response was, this isn't, we're taking this further. This was, it wasn't an opportunity to really discuss anything. So, at that point, we went back. I called animal control immediately, explained to him what happened. That's not the first call I've made to them about the situation. So,
Have you called animal control before?
yes, I've called animal control because it's really coincidental, because there's a history of these dogs. Like I said, Geronimo's come over to my yard several times, okay? And I've even mentioned it to them. I didn't think I'd have to record all this stuff and be at this point, okay? And he's come over and they've done the same thing, and I grabbed her and pulled him away. Beanan's never followed him out, never gone over there, but he's come over our yard several times. The fence, I heard, works, she's trained without it, but then I heard it's broke, it was down a period of time and he got through. Well, he's getting through it one way or another. So, I've heard competing statements there. He's come over to our yard a few times, no allegations. I told Joellen about it. Joellen said, "Oh, I didn't see any blood on him. He must be fine." That was the response. So,
You're saying,
Question.
sorry, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead.
You're saying that during this altercation, your dog was also bit?
yes. Oh, yeah, I got it blown up.
Yeah, sure.
Did I
Sure.
miss that? I saw that somewhere.
May I just ask the relevance?
Yeah,
Somebody bites me, I'm probably gonna bite them back.
And
you
that's
know?
exactly what happened here.
Yeah, but that's life in dog world, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so I've got a question though. There's been two incidents where it would appear if the dog had been managed differently, we wouldn't be here this evening, correct? There's the lunging at Mrs. Broder getting her mail, correct?
When she reached down, when I walked by, she reached,
Yes, you're correct, and clearly, somebody who's a dog owner, you gotta get better every day. So to that end, I would like to bring up the obedience trainer who's worked with and is continuing to work with Rich and Bina.
that was 5 months old
Yeah.
incident. She's 18 months.
Okay, all right.
So we all grow.
I understand. So, and then we have this incident where, again, I'm not trying to be a wise guy, but if you held the leash the way I hold the leash with my girth, that dog ain't getting to that other dog. And I'm probably not holding it the appropriate way, but my dog, who's only 42 pounds, but rather can be aggressive, and I admit it, she's never gotten away from me because of the way I hold my leash. So we have one incident where a dog was allowed apparently to get too close to someone, a neighbor, just getting their mail. And here we have an incident of a dog doing what dogs do, running along a property line, a fence line, or into the street, barking at another dog, and the dog gets away from you.
Well, the first statement isn't 100% correct.
I'm sorry?
The first statement's not 100% correct, and I have witness to it. We were walking out, and she grabbed the mail, she approached us to see Bina. She approached us, and when she approached us, I didn't go, here, I'm not taking the dog over there to do that. So, and that's how it's sounding from you, and that's not accurate.
I understood that she got the mail turned, and then there was.
No, that's not like we were standing there waiting for her to turn around. No, that didn't go on.
No, I didn't take it that way. I thought she was on a walk.
No.
But regardless, in this incident, the dog got away from you.
Right. And let my trainer contest. I mean, I'm going by, and I've had two trainers. Both of them have trained. If any of you guys went through training with a dog, I've had two trainers, and they both trained to hold the leash like that.
I'm not questioning that. All I know is the dog got away from you. So the rest of it's window dressing, in my opinion.
Right. And just to add it, I was also trained to hold the leash that way, and I can't keep my dog under control with a leash that way when she's lunging at another dog, and she's 7 pounds. I wrap it around my wrist. And when I see another dog coming and I know that there's gonna be an issue, I know that I'm not gonna lose the leash.
Now,
wait a minute,
Hence-
let's not, excuse me, I don't want to get into how, let's not go back and forth about whether or not we should be holding a leash a certain way right now. Let's hear what, if you have a witness, a trainer, and you could have them come up and explain their logic to why you do that, because I don't want to be debating this here.
Let's have Saul.
So.
Back to the cheap seats.
Hi, my name is Saul Levin. I own New England Canine School for Dogs since 1973. Trained about 15,000 dogs. I'm also an expert witness. I have my CV, if you want to see that. I can tell you that I've been training with Rich's dog, and the dog is smart as can be. Should that have happened? Absolutely not. But as far as the control of the dog, he has complete control of the dog. I was at his house today.
Let me interrupt you for a second.
Go ahead.
Are you telling us what we just saw over there? He had complete control of that dog?
I want you to know, when you look at that, when I look at that, especially on you look at it on, when it's not all blurred, and that's all I've seen, is that, to me, it looked like those dogs were just playing with each other.
I'm not talking about that.
Okay.
I thought you said that Mr. Kowalski had complete control of that dog.
Okay. At that incident, that dog came charging out and provoked what happened. Their dog came out, and then they started walking away, and however the leash came out of his hands, I was not there. It should not have done that. But that dog is not a dangerous dog.
Okay, but, right, so,
I can show you about as far as the leash. This is how you hold the leash. This
Mr.
way-
Chairman, may I just ask relevance?
well,
I'm showing how it should not have done
I'm
that.
curious.
Well, should not have, apparently didn't work, so I'm just wondering why
Well,
we're
it's
hearing this.
relevant because I think you've made it relevant, because you kept pointing it out to my client that the leash came off, and you shared how you hold the leash, so I think we should see how he was at least trained to hold the leash.
Okay, fine, the dog got away. What more do you need to know?
Well, what you need to know is that there's mitigating factors here.
Like what?
And that, okay, we know where you stand. Thank
No,
you.
I'm just asking you, what's the mitigating factor?
Dog charges,
Dog runs along his property line.
no, we see it differently.
Oh, okay, fine, that's
So,
funny.
Continue.
So, about the leash,
I'm curious to hear why you think that's such a great way to hold the leash, but,
the reason you do it is, it's here, it's over here, you're here, both, you have it all here, this hand is supposed to be here. The reason you keep your thumb there is if you have to shorten it, you can just shorten the leash without a problem, you can loosen it back up to wherever you want. Also, when you go to give a correction to your dog, the correction is just a little quick snap and release with both hands in the whole upper part of your body. Okay, and the release is more important than that jerk. When you have this wrapped around your hand, and your little dog, or any dog, starts pulling, you could end up just going with that dog or falling down. The other way, that can't happen. Okay, can't happen.
well, if you get a dog that's that big, and you have that
That
thing
dog is
wrapped,
not 90 pounds.
okay, but if you have a dog, and you wrap that around your wrist,
Yeah,
and that dog can pull you over because you can't release that leash,
yes,
that
you
that
can-
it won't slip out of your hand. No, you would say when you wrap it around.
Right.
Then you shouldn't have a dog that you can't control like that.
That's
If
right.
your dog's gonna pull you over, you should not have a dog like that. If that's what,
That's right, yes, the dog always does that, but it's only at that instant.
Mr. Chairman?
So it's at that instant with that dog rushing out at that. And if you look at this on the small, like maybe on this,
Yeah.
you'll see it. I mean, that's how I
So-
saw it.
So, I agree the dog, we can see that dog ran close to the edge of the road, whatever that distance is where the fence is, but it stopped. So, Bina was not in any danger because the dog wasn't 10 feet away from it when it stopped running in their direction.
How would Bina
The
know?
threat was there. The threat was still there.
How would Bina know that the dog wasn't gonna come at her? If you could answer that.
No, there is no,
But the dog did stop. It started running along the parallel to the road as opposed to going out into the street.
right, yes, it didn't, that's right, but it was still provoked, and that's when the shepherd turned. The shepherd didn't turn or even look in that direction until that dog started charging.
Okay. Mr. Samuel?
So, Question though, so this is where I'm confused. You're saying the dog was provoked, so the dog's in its yard, fine. But what I'm trying to get my arms around is, you're saying the dog won't know that there's gonna be an electric fence. The dog won't know that Geronimo is gonna be constrained by the electric fence. But how will Bina know that going forward with any other dog that charges him? That's what I'm struggling with. So we have one instance here, I see that. But how, with other dogs then, following that logic, saying he was provoked, if another dog comes at him, what's to assure that it won't happen again?
A muzzle.
If you're that concerned, you could just put a muzzle on the dog. But he takes the dog out to the park or wherever he goes in the neighborhood, and this is the only problem, from what I know and from me speaking to them.
So-
To me, it was just,
It's-
that's just my house.
Are you-
Two dogs are fighting or playing,
Yeah,
and somebody gets scratched or bitten or whatever. It's just how it is. You go play football and throw out your shoulder, whatever it may be.
but are you saying that the solution to this problem is putting a muzzle on the dog when it's off the property?
The biggest solution to that problem is they should have some kind of a, but that's the only problem, that the two neighbors should work out a thing that I'll take the dog out around this time, and you can, and then I'll bring the dog back in, you take the dog out about this time, and that's it, and the problem is solved. It's not because it's a dangerous dog or anything like that.
I haven't made a determination in my mind yet whether it's dangerous or not, but it would seem that the solution to the problem is making sure that you had that dog under voice command, you definitely have it on the leash, have it under voice command, and be able to control the dog. Because you need the muzzle, because it sounds like you're saying that's the solution to the problem, not the dog.
He's undergoing training. That's why he's back with Saul for obedience training. To stop those, well, I don't know how you stop a dog from reacting to a trigger when another dog is charging it and barking at it. That would be a miracle worker, but, the muzzle is not for us, it's for them. So they
I
know,
know
like, okay, they're worried about their kids and stuff, so Rich was like, all right, if that, so now nobody would have to worry if this dog got out, if the kids are.
So, how long have you been working with this dog?
Since September 15th of 18.
Okay, so from September, and you're still working with the dog?
And we work till November 7th of 19. Oh, no, that was the day of the dog fight. So the last time I saw him was June 17th of 19.
What?
The last time I saw Richard was June 17th of 19.
Okay, so you haven't,
And then, sorry, you just saw him again.
Oh, yeah. And I just saw him, I mean, I see him again, but we
When
haven't
did you
been
start again?
training. Pardon me?
did you start working with him, training or to do an evaluation?
No. We started training on September 15th of 18.
Of 18?
Of
But-
18, yes.
Since June of 19,
Yes.
have you worked with the dog?
We have not had any lessons.
Have you interacted with the dog?
I didn't hear from him until the day of the dog fight, or November 7th of 19. That's when I heard from him again.
Okay, but at the present time, you're not still working with the dog? Are you, does the
No.
dog?
Oh, no, we have one session left.
You're
Did you see
confusing
the
me.
dog? Did you see the dog in November?
I saw that he brought the dog over to the house.
Okay, in November, after the incident.
Correct.
Okay, and now, the question is, what's gonna be your level of involvement? I think
How much
that's
have
what
you
he
seen the
wants to know.
dog since the incident in November? How many times have you seen the dog?
Twice, maybe.
And is that a training session?
No, one time was after the situation.
For what? I mean, what, then
He
what
wanted
did you
to
do?
just show me the dog.
What, just sit and have coffee? I mean, what was the point of that, of that
He wanted
meeting?
me to, he brought the dog over to Salt. I wanted you to go over this stuff with me again, We talked, so we put him through his paces, and the dog was fine, and he wanted me to see the dog because of the situation.
Okay, and then you
Problem.
saw him one more time?
I saw him one more time,
And
and
did-
tonight, and
Well,
tonight.
forget tonight, but, so the second time, what did you do? What was the meeting for the second time? You said you saw him right after the incident.
I saw him right after the incident, and okay, so I saw him in December. I saw him, I think December 31st, I saw him,
December 31st.
December 31st.
Okay, and what was that for? Just to have an evaluation or?
To
to try to-
evaluate, yep, he came over at 3 o'clock to evaluate the dog.
Okay. Mr. Cohen, is your client having anybody else working with that dog right now? Is there any active training right now?
I do not believe so, but he's open to active training. He does training with the dog, but I think we need somebody over them both.
Okay,
I don't think he is right now.
okay.
No, I have sessions left with him.
With Saul.
Okay. Okay. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, that would be it. I did, like I say,
So,
if
Can I just
it's
ask-
a thing that just happened, I do have one thing to say. There isn't, like when I said it's this incident, because there haven't been any other incidents. The incident with that dog was 4 months old and a puppy. First of all, nobody's supposed to come down with your hand like this on a dog. And when the lady reached out, from what Rich said, when you come up to any dog in the entire world, you never come down on a dog. You just put your hand out like this. If the dog wants to come to you and smell you, okay. Some people say, why can't I pat your dog? I tell people, I guess you don't smell good. He doesn't want to be patted by you. I mean, there is no way to make that happen. There's also no way to make two dogs like each other. Just like there's no way to make two people like each other. But we all should be at least civil around each other for 15 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it may be.
you're talking about the dogs, huh?
I'm talking about dogs and people. In other words, there's no way to make two people like each other.
Question?
Okay.
Well, can I-
Mrs. O'Neill.
Mr. DePaul, so a few questions, just talking about the hand like you were just talking
Yes.
about. But what I'm trying to understand, then using my Petco example again, aren't you always gonna run that risk that?
When you have a dog, it's your responsibility for that dog. If I was walking my dogs down, and maybe it's my profession, how I was brought up, whatever it may be, but my eyes are always open to know what's gonna happen around my dogs. Okay, and if I went to see somebody go to pat my dog, and they went to go do that, I would stop it.
Right, just, so in your professional opinion, though, do you see a risk with a dog, if the owner's not, in this case, I guess following your logic, can the dog bite at any time, though? I mean, most
Any
dogs
dog,
don't do that.
any of your dogs could do the same thing.
My 20-pound pug isn't gonna do
Let me
a
tell you
lot.
something, the worst dogs are the smallest dogs.
No,
me
not
ask-
this one, trust me.
let me ask
Okay,
you-
sorry, two quick questions. Just, what's success for training? So we understand, we've seen this, and now there's some lessons remaining. What would be the goal of training at this point, of obedience training? How would you, if there are issues or identified, or what kind of training would happen going forward?
We still have one lesson we haven't talked about, off-leash training, and that's what we're gonna start doing. We've done all the training up to that point.
I
Can you
think,
explain why you, they don't want the dog to be off leash, but why you train off leash so that the dog has recall? Can you explain why you would train off leash?
Oh,
You're
yes,
not training so that the dog can now walk off leash.
No, not at all.
But you have to explain that.
Oh, okay. So it's just, accidents can happen. And all of a sudden, you'll be able to call your dog off. Okay? It's like Rich said when, like I say, I wasn't there, but he said, whoever the other people were, I don't know their name, but he said he held up his hand or something to say, call your dog. Well, the dog never went and never left. The dog just stood there. So that's when off-leash work would be good, because then the dog would have gone away. Where when Rich called his dog, you can see in that video, his dog started to come right back to him. and the other dog didn't stop. The other dog kept coming. To me, it was just an act of play, and somebody got hurt.
Any other questions?
Just one more. I'm still struggling with training, though. So this incident happened in November. You saw the dog after, maybe twice after. I'm still
Yeah,
wrestling
yeah.
with that. But I'm still trying to understand what kind of training or obedience training would this dog, what would you recommend at this point if watching that, or if there's any concerns about the dog, if you're looking to recalibrate, what kind of training would there be? Or how would you know if there are any issues with the dog? Is this something that you'd do an observation, or you do?
It's observation and see how he's training. Is he keeping up with his training to make sure all of that is under control? That's the key. The leash should have never come out of his hands. That was an accident. But it was an accident that happened because the two dogs were pulling. I mean, this dog was coming this way, so all of a sudden, this dog getting provoked, or for whatever reason, maybe it was a daily thing because it happens. I can't tell you that.
I think what we all want to know is, especially as dog owners, this is what you do. Tell us exactly, like, what are some of the things that you would work on besides watching them and telling them, put your hand back on the leash? Like, what exercises or tests or what will you do at these training sessions?
If the leash did not come out of that person's hands, he should have been able to correct this dog. And with the word heel, that dog should have ignored that other dog and just went right down his merry way.
So how do you
Even
teach
after
that?
being, we got to keep up with the training. So in the middle of the mistake, the dog is corrected. So the dog learns not to do that action again. It's just that simple.
Okay.
It's just like you go to touch the stove, you get burnt. How many more times are you going to touch the stove? That's all it is. It's repetition, 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 and I don't know how much I mean, it's not my job to be on their back to keep making them work their dog. We go through the lessons, they have to go home and practice a minimum of 2 15 to 20-minute periods every single day. If you do that work, you don't have trouble. I mean, I compete all the time. Do the police dogs, search and rescue, I mean, I can show you my CV. And I do all kinds of stuff like that, and we train the dogs in mid-ear. I mean, you put a dog on somebody, and in mid-ear, that dog could be in mid-ear, and you could call that dog, and that dog might have to hit that person because it's falling to the ground. But that dog could, bam, right back to you.
You've worked with Bina, you've worked with Rich. Is Bina a dog that is trainable?
Totally, totally. That was that's one situation that's happened in however old the dog is.
18 months.
18 months.
How much does being away?
62 pounds.
Yeah, somebody said 90, and I tell them over there, that dog's not 90 pounds.
The other important thing is,
So it's 60 to 40, if they said their dog was then 40.
Two.
How much?
42.
42. I'm pretty certain that Bina is gonna be neutered at 2 years old. Is that right?
Correct. I wanted her to get.
I mean, sorry, spayed at 2 years old. So I don't know, does spaying a female dog, does that
I don't
make her any
believe spaying or neutering does anything.
behavioral?
I don't believe it.
Okay.
I don't believe it.
Mr. Gordon, do you have
Thank you.
another
Aside
witness? If there's anything,
I'm looking for something new in these witnesses.
thank you.
And,
Recommendations?
yes, thank you. I think it'd be good maybe to go to the animal control officer to share his report too. Sound?
Yeah. Do the Broders have any questions of?
Oh, sorry. Right. Well, just wait for a second. Do you have any questions to ask of Mr. Kowalski or?
Can we play the rest of the video?
Well, I guess there is a question. It takes a little bit to get there. I'm glad that we saw the video because I think it actually shows you exactly what our fear is and what our deepest fear is. Where the video stops, you see Geronimo take maybe a step, maybe two, coming back to me. The video stops there because at that point, you know, the dog, realizes he's in great pain and stops. I can't remember if he lies down. I'm fairly certain that he does. But, the incident was not long, but didn't need to be. So do I have any, do I have any
Do you
questions?
have questions for Mr. Kowalski or the trainer, or?
I do not.
Okay,
I do not.
okay, thank you. Animal control officer. I think if you feel you need to read your whole report, that's fine, but I think we've heard enough I think at least in our own minds, get an understanding of what's happening. So unless you feel it's necessary to do that, we have your written report. If you can offer something new and offer your perspective on the situation.
I don't need to read the whole report, but I do want to mention a couple things. I just want my involvement in this whole situation first started off in early July. Joellen did contact me by phone. She did express some concerns about, Richard's dog. She did mention the incident by the mailbox. She mentioned an incident where the dog had supposedly bit a FedEx driver in the past. Did call FedEx, couldn't confirm that. As far as the incident at the mailbox, she did provide a name of a witness. He was a contractor. His name was John Ducat. He was working at the home at the time. He actually called me today. He did say he witnessed it. He had been working there cutting down some trees. Apparently he was there at the time it occurred. He did pretty much, I don't want to say he corroborated her story, but he saw the dog, lunge at her. After that, I basically let her know at the time when she expressed these concerns that, I offered I could talk to, Bina's owner, Richard, but without actually having any reported incidents or no one being bit, anything of that nature, as far as any remedial action, there wasn't much we could do at the time. She kind of declined that. She said she would let me know if anything were to occur in the future. If she had any additional concerns, she would call me. August 30th, Richard Kowalski did call me. He wanted to report to me that he was having issues with the Berger's dog, Geronimo. He believed that they were letting their dog out intentionally to antagonize his dog. He said almost, not daily, but very often when he would walk by, roughly around the same time, between 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, their dog would either run out and bark at his dog, or when he would come back down from walking his dog at Dean Park, their dog would be in the front yard at the edge, barking at his dog. Again, offered the same thing. I offered I could go talk to the Brodeurs about it, see what was going on. He declined. He said he just wanted it logged, and he would let me know if anything developed in the future. No further incidents, calls from either party till November 6th, when Richard did call me to report the incident we've seen here today. I think despite, what's been presented by both sides, I do think that day, that particular incident, it's hard to dispute by the video. Richard did lose control of the dog. Geronimo never left its own property, so, that incident that day, I do think is his fault. I think the best solution to the issue would be, I'll say, when that incident occurred, his dog, for the bite, I did give it a 10-day quarantine. At the end of the quarantine, I visited with Richard. I advised him, a muzzle would probably be a good solution to prevent this from happening in the future. I also advised that he not let his dog roam free in the front yard, walk to the mailbox, anything of that nature. He has a very well-secured, fenced-in backyard. He took me through it. Everything's gate secured by lock and key. He's bungeed the doors for extra security. So I recommended, the dog not be allowed to roam, by him, not to roam freely in the front yard, and just be confined to the back while off leash. While he was walking in public, a basket muzzle on the dog would be appropriate to ensure it doesn't happen again. It's already been shown, it could have very well been an accident that one time, but to prevent it from ever happening again, I think a muzzle and confining to the backyard is probably the best solution.
Would you just stay there for a minute?
Sure.
Does anybody have any questions? Mrs. Simon?
Can I ask a question, what we've talked about so far and some other testimony? In your opinion, just with dogs generally, if the dog is rough and tumble, how often does a dog bite another dog and break skin?
It could happen anytime they,
Do you see it a lot?
wouldn't say I see it a lot. The most calls I get for dog bites are something of this nature, a dog leaving the property, biting another dog being walked on the road, or just two dogs not liking each other and getting into an altercation, but
Just one question in your professional opinion, if a dog doesn't like one dog and bites that dog, are dogs that smart to say, I just don't like that dog and I'll never bite again, or is there usually a behavior? I'm just trying to get my arms around
I
some of
mean, I
this.
honestly don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
I mean, if a dog is provoked, it can result in, can result in that dog, whether it's thinking it's defending its owner, defending itself, its territory, if a dog's provoked, it can bite.
Thanks.
As a question, I read your quarterly report, and there were 5 dog bites in the last quarter, which I assume this is one of.
Correct.
So there were 4 others. Were any of the others as severe as this, to your knowledge?
I know there were, are you talking 5 dog on dog bites?
There was 5 dog on dog and 4 dog on human.
I don't recall offhand. I don't believe I
There's nothing that
had,
stands out?
I don't believe I had any incidents where, dogs were, they may have been taken to the vet, but it was nothing where, more than minor puncture wounds. There was not, I didn't have any other incidents where dogs were put under anesthesia, had any kind of work like that done.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? No? Mr. Cohen?
Officer,
Go ahead.
did you, after Mr. Carlos made the complaint,
Ms. Cohen, excuse me, could you go to one of the mics?
Microphone, sorry. Yeah.
That's-
After Mr. Kowalski talked to you in August about his concerns about Geronimo, did you take any action? Did you do anything with that info?
No, I asked him if he'd like me to speak to the board doors, and he declined.
So you didn't speak to them
No.
about that? Okay. And what's your familiarity with actual dog bite severity? So we heard the chairman say as severe as this, as a $300 one puncture severity. Are you familiar with, how would you grade out the severity of that? The picture of the, have you seen the picture of the wound?
Yes.
Okay. And do you see teeth or do you see a puncture wound?
I don't know. I'm not a veterinarian. I mean, I don't.
And do you have a scale or an opinion as to, where is that on a spectrum?
Again, I'm not a veterinarian. I don't know as far as dog on dog bites, how severe that would be graded.
So when he asked you about the other 4 bites, aside from there being anesthesia in this case, did you see the pictures of the other dogs or the other? No.
Nope. Generally, I'll get a notice from a veterinarian that they had a dog in for a dog bite. It'll just short description of the situation, owner's information. I'll follow up with the owner. But generally, I don't get photographs.
Okay. And the last question is, you talked about, to Mr. Samia's question about, if a dog, is it possible for a dog to hate that dog but not that dog? And you said, well, if a dog's provoked. So my sense is, and I am certainly putting words in your mouth, that you think that Bina was in some way provoked. My question is, if she was provoked, was her response grossly disproportionate?
No.
To what she thought she might be facing?
No, I don't think her actions were disproportionate, but it was Richard's fault for losing control of the leash in that particular incident. But no, I don't believe, I mean, a dog being provoked, I don't believe it's disproportionate for a dog to react to defend itself.
Thank you.
Mr. DiPaolo, can I ask just one more question?
Sure.
Officer. The talking to Mr. Ducat today,
Yes.
did he get into details about the dog lunging? Was it did he happen to see what happened? Was it Mrs. Broder hand towards the dog?
He didn't mention her making any motions towards the dog. He just said, he said the dog was on leash. He just said the dog, as it approached, it was acting aggressive, barking, growling, things of that nature, and he didn't mention her moving towards the dog at all, no.
Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
it's kind of hard to ask a question without that person being here.
I hear you, but he talked about it. So I got you.
One last question.
Sure.
After the
He wasn't there.
After the incident happened in November, did you obviously, you said you spoke to the Broders.
Correct.
Did you try to talk to them about timing, if they're in the morning or something, about not letting the dog out? Or somehow working out some type of schedule?
I did. Yep.
And what, did they respond? What was their response to that?
I mentioned, basically I mentioned to them if they felt it was dangerous, Bina was dangerous, did they think it was a good idea to have the dog in the front yard? To which they replied, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I did suggest a schedule for them. I mean, they seemed at the time open to it, as well as Richard did, but, again, it is their front yard. An electronic fence is a legal method to confine your dog to the yard, so it's not required that they have to, they have to go by a schedule. Their dog can be in their front yard.
Have you been called to the scene for any reason since that incident?
Nope. Like I said, I did mention to Richard, it would be a good idea to use a muzzle, keep the dog in the backyard so we could prevent another incident. He did seem very open to it at the time. I don't know at this point if he's implemented those measures, but those would be my suggestions to prevent another incident in the future.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
You have a second.
Can I ask a quick question? Could someone remind me if your backyard is fenced or protected by electric fence? I can't recall.
There's a physical fence.
Okay.
The invisible fence is around the entire property.
Okay.
We do have, just recently, and the reason for that one incident we talked about, the break in the fence, was we put a pool in the backyard. Now there's a fence in the pool. That's
Okay.
what happened when we had the
Gotcha.
incident.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Gordon, you all set?
We're good, thank you.
Okay. You all set?
I'm all set.
Anyone else?
May I ask the dog officer, the animal control officer a question?
Sure.
Under the definition of the law, do you consider this to be a dangerous dog?
That's not for me to decide.
Well, what if I asked you?
Again, it's not for me to decide, but
You think it's a nuisance dog?
I think that it's not for me to decide either, but I do think if there are no precautions taken to make sure it happens again, there's a high probability that, if the Brodeurs dog continues to remain unrestrained in the front yard, well, restrained by only the fence, and he continues to walk by it, there is a chance of it happening again, but.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Do we need to do anything else?
No, unless you want a reminder of what we're doing, but as to whether it's a dangerous dog, the statutory standard.
Right. No, I think
It's in the memo, but,
we got that.
yeah.
Okay. And there's no one else that any of you would like to have testify? And that could offer anything new?
Okay.
Okay. All right, then could I have a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? There being none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, for the public's information, we won't be taking any more testimony, but we will be discussing what we heard, and we should be moving towards making a determination, so just so you know what's going on. Okay, so does anybody need to review the nuisance dangerous distinction? Okay, so then Would anybody have any comments? We gotta,
You, relative
anything
to
we
what
need?
we've heard?
Us, yes, about this now. Are we gonna move this evening to make a determination?
I'm comfortable doing so as one member.
Okay.
I am as well.
Great,
I am
okay.
too.
Okay, then, motions, comments?
Yeah, I'm happy to offer my thoughts and people
Sure.
can jump off of those.
Sure.
So just based on what I have heard this evening, I believe that we have a situation here where we have Bina as more of a nuisance dog. I don't think that this is a situation where I would feel comfortable saying that Bina is a dangerous dog. By the definition of the law, I understand that the neighbors may feel fearful of that dog by the unpredictableness of the behavior. We talked about training and what success in training would look like. And I think that it's important that Bina continue to be trained, and that success, I think, would be Bina be able to walk by the yard of Geronimo or any dog and have that dog bark, wag its tail, whatever, and not react. And that, I think, is the whole point of continuing the training, which I think is important. In my opinion, what the dog officer or the animal control officer offered as far as muzzling right now, I think that's an important stipulation that we put forward and require. I am concerned that there could be a situation, whether it be in the neighborhood or at Dean Park or at any of the businesses that Bina does visit, that there could be a situation where someone doesn't know not to put their hand out or approaches Bina and then there's a reaction. And we don't want to have ourselves in a situation where that happens again, especially while the dog is still being trained. So I think that that's reasonable. Where both parties also have backyards that are fenced, putting their dogs in their backyards sounds like another reasonable way of kind of maintaining some sort of distance between the two dogs, that we know they don't really get along with one another. If we know that Bina is always being walked at the same time, and the Broders have a fenced backyard, I think for everyone's safety, it makes sense to keep Geronimo in the backyard when Bina walks by, and likewise, if Bina's gonna be outside without her owner, she should be in the backyard where she's leashed also. So I think that there's ways to preserve a relationship of civility between the neighbors, but also make sure that there doesn't have to be fear amongst the Broders or the Colineros or anyone else in the neighborhood regarding Bina possibly getting off leash or the leash being dropped or any sort of situation arising. So that's just my opinion, having heard all the testimony.
Okay, I just want to ask Mr. Meadows a question. This complaint wasn't against Geronimo.
Correct.
It was about Bina.
Yes.
So we can't put any kind of condition, I mean, we can suggest maybe that the Broders keep their dog in the backyard whenever it's appropriate, but that's not, that wouldn't be any part of an order or a finding.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, that dog's not before you.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Anyone else? The Senator?
So, just going over the elements, an attack occurred, looking at the defined terms under the statute, under section 136A, chapter 140. Dangerous dog being the first instance here, but this was closer for me than the testimony today with the second, with additional description of the alleged event in July. But the standard is without justification attacks a person or domestic animal causing physical injury or death. There has been physical injury. I think we can talk about whether there was justification or not. I have a hard time coming down real clearly on that. I think that a dog in its front yard, not breaking any law, whether it's allegedly riling up the other dog, the point is that Geronimo was legally in his lawn, doing what he has been doing, and provoking a dog or not, you gotta keep the leash on your dog. I'm concerned about that, and we'll talk a second about recommendations. But what I was trying to elicit the response from the expert is understanding that how this won't happen again, because if the dog's provoked, and that's what I'm hearing a lot, that the dog was provoked, and you can't put your hand in front of the dog, I'm wary of that it's only Geronimo that's gonna cause this. But
Excuse me.
but
I
I'll
think
come
we
back to
should-
this.
No, I think we should keep our discussion focused amongst us.
I wasn't talking to you, I'm talking about the elements. I'm not talking specifically to you, I'm talking about the testimony, I'll go on. All I'm saying is.
No, I know, I'm just saying,
But it
we
wasn't
should direct our
specific at you.
conversations to our,
Fair enough, but there's no reason to get defensive. I didn't say anything other than what testimony was presented. I come down to it's a nuisance dog. I'm in agreement with that. It meets the third element to me. In terms of remediation, we talked about some of the recommendations by the animal control officer. I'd like to understand what kind of training there would be, what success would be. What I've heard is there have been 2 subsequent interactions with the dog since November 7th. I don't understand I don't know what success is with the dog, to be honest with you. But I'd like to have a training program for some assurances that this wouldn't happen going forward. I think that if they walk by, I don't know about having a muzzle all the time, but clearly past the property here, where Geronimo is, the muzzle should be there or driven beyond the property. I think that's where right now, the only instance that we've had, given all the testimony that's here, and I think it's that dog. So I don't know if the muzzle has to be all the time, but it clearly has to be across the street from Geronimo. Obviously, if there's any subsequent interaction or with any individuals, if there are any bites, we gotta have any reports made to us. But I just ongoing, just additional training, so we know what's going on with the dog. But I come out, it's a nuisance dog at this point.
Mr. Helms? The muzzle on the dog, would you recommend all the time it's in public, or only, whatever, in that vicinity to the end of Rice Street, that School Street? What do you recommend?
My preference would be while it's being walked anywhere in public, but if it were to only be ordered just on Rice Street, I mean, I think that would at least prevent another incident from happening with the Brodeurs dog.
What you would recommend always?
That would be my preference, yes. Always
Okay.
muzzled.
Okay, thank you. Mr. King?
I agree in elements with my colleagues. Fortunately, I don't think we're in a situation where we can, consistent with the statute, define it as a dangerous dog. But I think the dog is a nuisance dog, and I think it's appropriate that a training program be developed and implemented with the approval of the animal control officer and monitored by him every 30 days. I think it's also appropriate that if the dog is outside of the home or the fenced-in backyard, it always be muzzled and on a leash.
Okay. So, I really don't have anything to add beyond that. I do agree that, the way I read the statute, that it's a nuisance dog. Whether, he only had control of the dog, which allowed it to run onto the Broders' property is another story, but my understanding of dogs, my experience is, the dog doesn't have to run all the way up to another dog for a dog to feel that it's been threatened and I'm not condoning what happened, but, I don't think, it's a dangerous dog, so, I would agree, training, dog's gonna be let out off leash, it should only be in the backyard. And I think the muzzle, we could talk about that after we actually decide to make the finding, because we have to make the finding of whether the dog is a nuisance or not. I'm leaning towards at least the end of Rice Street that the dog has to have the muzzle on. I actually, and I didn't think this from reading the material, but I'm almost thinking that it should be on in public, because it's a lot of different kinds of dogs, particularly in Dean Park. And you just don't know. I mean, you know, an ounce of prevention, so, in any event, that's my thoughts. So, unless there's something else, do we need a particular motion other than to, okay,
Yeah, I'm working on it.
okay.
If I, Mr. Chairman, may I ask, when would the board would you want to impose a time standard for completion of the training, starting and completion, rather than unstated?
No, I think we should have documentation that the training has started by a certain date,
Yeah.
and I would say within 10 days, that we have at least contracted, they don't have to do it, have at least in 10 days, have something to document that the dog is being trained, and I don't know that we can follow up, but I would say within the next 3 to 4 months that we should be able to get a report from the dog trainer that the dog is under command of the owner, or whatever is appropriate language for that, but,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
are we including in the motion the recommendations? So we'll talk about those separately?
I think we have to have the motion finding it's whatever it is, a nuisance or a dangerous dog.
Yeah.
Then we can say what the conditions are, right? It's two separate motions, right?
Yes, I think you need to make the finding that it's a nuisance dog, and then what the requirements will be for the owner.
Okay. You got something for us, or?
Yeah, so the first would be, as I stated, finding that the dog is a nuisance dog, BINA, and that the owner must have BINA complete obedience training from a professional dog trainer with proof of payment and completion of the training and evidence of completion of the training submitted to the animal control officer.
Is it two separate motions, or is it one motion?
I think you do need to make the finding separately based on the evidence you've received that, as to
Yeah.
whether it's a dangerous dog or a nuisance dog, because the complaint was for a dangerous dog. And so you may find either, or none, but I think, it's pretty
No, I
clear
mean-
you're finding it's a nuisance dog, so you need to make that finding. And then we'll
Okay.
craft the conditions of the
Are
order.
you writing that finding? It sounds to me like there's gonna be a motion to deem it a nuisance dog.
Yeah, I think that you can do that.
All right, good.
Selectman,
I think I can just make a motion, correct?
yes.
Yes, that doesn't need to be written special. Would you like me to do that?
No, but,
I think,
well, let me say,
It's like that word.
I would
I think we have to make the motion.
suggest,
I can read that if you want.
that be the motion, so it's correct.
Read this motion.
The one with the arrow, you gotta fill in the spaces, so.
Okay. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move based on the following facts adduced at this public hearing, including but not limited to. Do you have to list all the different facts we heard? Okay, including but not limited to, the information pertaining to the November 7th, 2019 incident, that the Board of Selectmen find the dog complained of is a nuisance dog by reason of,
And I suggest,
pick one.
attacking a domestic animal,
Okay,
but such that the threat or attack was not a grossly disproportionate reaction under the circumstances.
so moved.
You have that memorized?
I don't know.
No, I read it off here.
Oh, well done.
You've given me that paper.
I didn't know what else to mention. Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, okay. Now, Mr. Madell. Need a motion of the,
Yeah, so to,
what the remedies are?
yeah, to remedy the nuisance dog, the board would order that the owner must have BINA complete obedience training from a professional dog trainer with proof of payment and proof of completion of the training submitted to the town's animal control officer. Said training to start within 10 days of the issuance of the order.
You're saying payment of, or were you talking about for payment of it, or actually starting with the training?
No, start the training
Okay,
within 10 days of the order.
Do you not want evidence
May
of
I
payment?
ask a question, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman? Do we want the animal control officer to approve the training class?
Should know what the training.
I don't know. It's certified trainer, okay.
I anticipate Mr. Kowalski's gonna use Saul for the training.
My suggestion is that we find, that he go through the CGC, so go through canine good citizen training, then those 12 tests, so you just have to find somebody who can train for that.
Yeah, I think we should have a little more time than 10 days,
Okay,
maybe within the next 30 days.
okay,
Once they find it in the backyard.
okay.
We could use language authorizing him to do it, the animal control officer.
Well, I think we have to say what we want done.
Okay, fine.
He's gonna follow up and make sure that it's done.
Fine.
I missed it, so is the board, is the order gonna be that the
It'll be
owner
30 days.
submit to the animal control officer?
Yeah, documentation of completion of training.
Or, well, is the animal
Initiation
control gonna
of
approve the trainer?
Oh, yeah,
Begin, yeah, that it's.
yes. Yes?
Okay,
Yes, please.
That's fine, yep.
okay. Okay. And we're gonna put a timeline for completion. You want a start date or just the completion?
Well, start within 30 days.
Okay.
I don't know, what's reasonable time?
It's a 30 days.
4 months, 5 months, 6 months?
I don't think we need a completion, the date the training needs to be completed by. I think if we just have a time, he needs to start the training by, and when the training's completed, it's, as long as we verify it's been through the entire program,
Okay,
no matter how long that takes.
okay.
But what we don't want is if he goes to one training and then nothing, we can't enforce it because there's no,
Right, so we'll verify he's completed the training, but I don't know if we can put a set, I don't know how long the training will be. So I don't know if we can put a
Mr. Chairman, why
completion
can't we
date on
put
it by
3
now.
months
We check it.
pending a report from the animal control officer? Animal control officer reports one way or another, either it's underway. Gentleman certainly seems sincere. So I would argue, let's have the animal control officer report back within 3 months. He's initiated it, he's underway, progress seems to be being made, et
So,
cetera.
if we're not gonna make him start, it may start before that, but we just said 30 days are reasonable, so maybe we should move it out, make it 4 months.
I'm not in a
So they get
position
3
to
months
We
judge.
could say
Training.
3 months after the date it starts.
Right,
Then
Yeah,
we'll
there you
do
go.
4 months out.
3 months after the date they start.
I don't think so.
I mean, as his attorney suggested, contract the trainer within 30 days.
Yeah.
The training's ongoing. So it's not like, it's not like in 3 months.
Mr. Chairman, you can't have a vague term that can't be enforced as to what
All right,
what
so
is
what
meant.
do we need?
I think we need it to start by a certain time, whatever that
Start within
reasonable
30
time.
days of the order.
And because then it wouldn't be known as to, you know, if they abandon it, there's no, I don't know how we enforce that it didn't happen.
And
Just the training that they were talking about, is that a prescribed process? They were, is that the training you were talking about?
Keith?
So, starting animal control, it's like a 6-month program, this canine good citizen, so, but it's constant, it's not, so they could, we're just talking to the trainer, as long as the trainer will do it, just email him and say, he's appeared, he hasn't missed, things like that, and then he has to,
We're just trying to figure out the measurement, that's why, is it a 6-month
I think
program or
it's a
ongoing
6-month.
after the 6 months too?
and
or-
then, sorry.
No, I'm just trying to understand.
I know the
I
6
don't know
month,
how long this one is.
Okay.
it's 6 months, but I also know he's indicated he's just engaged in ongoing training even after that. But this
Okay.
CGC training is 6 months, and then there's a test.
Okay.
So what I have is, owner must have BINA complete obedience training from a professional dog trainer approved by the town's animal control officer. Said training to start within 30 days from the date of the order, and evidence of completion shall be provided to the town's animal control officer within 7 months from
It's a 6-month program.
Okay.
Perfect.
the date
Perfect.
of commencement. Because we're gonna issue a written order. It won't be tonight, it'll be post, you know, the part of the vote will be the board will authorize the chair to sign the written order. And that will be the start of it, so it's not whenever that comes out later in the week. I think the second condition was that the owner shall humanely muzzle BINA at all times
Are we gonna be in
Yes.
all times?
when BINA is not on the owner's property? Was that?
My motion was in the home or in the fenced-in backyard. Anytime outside of those two areas should be muzzled.
This is the suggested language from the ACO. I don't know if we want to use that. I was looking at the recommendation from the control officer and track that, if that's the.
So the animal control's offer proposed condition was BINA shall be securely and humanely muzzled using a basket-type muzzle while being walked in public, including parks, and only walked on a 6-foot or shorter non-retractable leash.
I agree with that leash. I had written down,
Okay,
making sure we have leash length in there.
yes, that okay? All right, so that.
You want that as the second condition?
Sure.
So the vote would be having found that the dog BINA is a nuisance dog, the board orders the owner or keeper of the dog to take the following remedial action to ameliorate the cause of the nuisance behavior. And that one is the owner must have BINA complete obedience training from a professional dog trainer approved by the town's animal control officer. Said training to start within 30 days from the date of this order. And evidence of completion shall be provided to the town's animal control officer within 7 months from the date of commencement. And then the second provision is BINA shall be securely and humanely muzzled using a basket-type muzzle while being walked in public, including parks, and only walked on a 6-foot or shorter non-retractable leash. And then the board would authorize the chair to sign that order and deliver it to,
Okay, so, just so we're clear, so if the dog is in the fenced-in backyard on his own property, the dog doesn't need to be muzzled, right? Because it's not in public.
correct, that's how I
Just want
read
to make sure
that.
they understand.
I guess that one too.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, not offering any evidence, but they have a 400-foot drive. I think the restriction of on your property muzzle on the I think leashed on the property, but muzzled on the property. They have a 400-foot driveway where they train set up. It's pretty, I mean, it's what the board wants, which is fine. I'm just saying that's.
So,
I mean, off the property.
so you're saying on leash unless it's fenced in the backyard, but on leash and on muzzle off the owner's property?
I think she should be, I think which is fair, is muzzled off my property is fair.
Muzzled and leashed off property.
Leashed off my property by all means.
But it's gotta be leashed if it's on the front of your property.
Yeah, if it's not in the backyard. If it's not in the backyard.
If it's not if it's not in a fenced-in yard, it needs to be leashed. So if I put a fence in my front yard, I don't have to have.
That's the other
Right.
condition.
Leashed on property.
I'm just looking for clarification, because we're not negotiating, so.
No, I'm just.
So is that a-
That's the, that's the animal control officer's
What?
other suggested condition. Bina
What?
remain confined to the fenced-in backyard area of 17 Rice Street, while outside and off-leash on its own property, and not be allowed to freely roam the front yard or driveway area unrestrained.
Unless it's fenced in.
Fair enough.
If he fences in the yard, it'd be the
Yeah.
same as the backyard being fenced.
Right.
That's not a problem.
Right.
Is that okay? That make sense? That make
I don't know
sense?
if you can
I'm not
fence
sure
in
what
your
we're
front
talking
yard,
about,
yeah.
yeah.
Currently, the backyard's fenced in.
Great.
Depends what the.
Yes, you could.
Not sure.
What Mr. Kowalski's saying is, if he fences in the whole front yard,
Like 30 years, so you can't.
can the dog be in the front yard in the fenced-in area without being muzzled?
I think we need to have a fenced-in front yard first. I don't think we can base our decision on a fenced-in front yard that doesn't exist.
I like the motion we have.
Okay.
If the gentleman chooses to redesign his yard, he can always come back and ask for an amendment.
Right.
So there's the third condition.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you read them again? So, are we pretty much there? Can you just read them again so that we understand what we're doing?
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, so the order would read that the board has found Bina to be a nuisance dog, and it hereby orders that the owner or keeper of the dog Bina take the following remedial action to ameliorate the cause of the nuisance behavior. 1, the owner must have Bina complete obedience training from a professional dog trainer approved by the town's animal control officer. Said training to start within 30 days from the date of this order, and evidence of completion shall be submitted by the owner to the town's animal control officer within 7 months from the date of commencement. And then the second condition of the order is that Bina shall be securely and humanely muzzled using a basket-type muzzle while being walked in public, including parks, and only be walked on a 6-foot or shorter, non-retractable leash. And then the third condition, Bina remain confined to the fenced-in backyard area of 17 Rice Street, while outside and off-leash on its owner's property, and not allowed to roam freely in the front yard or driveway area unrestrained, where there are no physical barriers.
Okay. Okay.
Those are from the building.
Motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any further
We'll draft
discussion?
that and could you authorize the chair to sign that on behalf of the board, please?
Furthermore, authorizing the chairman to sign it on behalf of the board.
Second.
Any further discussion? No? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed, so voted. Okay. Here we are. Okay,
Item 16.
you're gonna get a couple. Item 16 is an email dated December 23rd, 2019, from Paige Sepiga, MIPA, regarding notice of comment period extension regarding the Shrewsbury landfill Phase 1 footprint modification. So noted. Item 17 is an email dated December 27th. Oh, yeah, okay. From Paige Sepiga, MIPA, notice of MIPA consultation session, EEA number 16129, Shrewsbury landfill Phase 5, Section 7, baseliner footprint modification. So noted. Item 18 is an email dated December 28th from Pamela Crandall, 5 Applewood Circle, regarding a trash complaint that she reported. Waste Management was going to respond to Ms. Crandall directly, right? They were going to the property. Do you know if that was resolved?
That's correct. It was, they were headed out there that day that she emailed us, and it's been resolved as far as I understand it.
Okay, thank you. Item 20 is an email dated January 3rd, 2020, from Keith Elmsey, Animal Control Officer, regarding the quarterly warrant. So noted. Item 21 is a letter dated January 3rd, 2020, from Nick Repetka, Highway Division Manager, regarding the snowstorm report of Monday, December 30th, 2019. That storm cost $63,055. Okay, for not having a whole lot of snow, we seem to be burning through that pretty quick. Amazing.
Long duration events.
Yeah, I know it. Okay, is there anything else to come before the board in open session? Okay, there being none, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, motion second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. This meeting is adjourned.